Stalin knew he had another secret disinformation weapon in his arsenal, a tactic called framing. Many believe that the worst damage from Soviet intelligence operations against the West has been the theft of highly classified secrets. In actuality, the worst and often irreparable damage done to the free world has been caused by the Kremlin's disinformation operations, designed to change the past. In KGB jargon, changing people's pasts was called framing, and it was a highly classified disinformation specialty. Both Lenin and Stalin successfully purged millions of rivals, opponents, and uncooperative citizens by framing them as traitors or Zionist spies. In 1945, Stalin decided to use his disinformation machine to take control of Eastern Europe. Nazi sympathizers were considered the most vile people at that time, and to be framed as such meant to be ostracized, arrested, or to be sentenced to death. Stalin used this black art of framing on numerous innocents.
I saw as Romania's heroic King Michael was framed as a Nazi collaborator and Western spy and forced to abdicate. Within just a few years, virtually the entire Romanian economy was running on stolen property. With control of the media, the government launched powerful disinformation offensives to persuade everyone that Romania could be changed into a prosperous country just by confiscating others' wealth.
And Romania was supposed to be an Allied control after 45. Why was that so much free hand given to Stalin? That's my accusation.
The Sovietization of Eastern Europe was accomplished by the Kremlin through subversive framing operations. All the initial leaders of the Eastern European countries were absolute nobodies, some even criminals, but all swore loyalty to the Kremlin's religion, Marxism, Leninism, Stalinism. The Soviet disinformation machinery thus framed the useful ones as national heroes, and the anti-communists became Nazis.
Huge crowds such as these shown here gather in the square before St. Peter's in Rome, where His Holiness Pope Pius XII speaks to them. This year, 400,000 listened intently to his solemn Easter message. In it, he warned the world that a time of serious crisis is at hand, and gravely cautioned his listeners against red factions who would seize power in Italy and deny Christianity its right to exist.
He despised the notion of communism, and he despised the notion of godless countries. And so he was the enemy, the supreme enemy.
He knew what communism meant, and it brought the church to its knees wherever it was, brought people to their knees.
For Stalin's plan to succeed, he knew he must destroy one of his greatest enemies. The church within those countries was his next target. The war between communism and the Catholic Church is almost as old as communism itself. In Russia, Lenin killed thousands of priests and closed most churches to make Marxism-Leninism the country's sole religion.
Most Americans and most people in the Western world do not understand what communism is about. Communism is first, way before economic system, is a religion. It has a God, his name is Lenin. It has a church, its name is the Communist Party of the USSR. It has its prophets, it has its rituals, it has its texts, it has the Bible, it has everything. Lenin is in you, Lenin is in me, Lenin is everywhere. So just substitute Jesus or God, and you'll understand where it comes from. They stole everything from Judaism, actually. So I believed in my God. Lenin was the most important hero, the most important person in my childhood. I was willing to inform on my parents. I was a good patriot. I was willing to die to destroy imperialism in America.
On June 3, 1945, Radio Moscow proclaimed that the leader of the Catholic Church, Pope Pius XII, had been Hitler's pope, insinuating that he had been an ally of the Nazis during World War II. This was the first salvo of a calculated operation designed to smear the reigning pope in the eyes of the world. Radio Moscow's insinuation fell flat as a pancake. Churchill called him the greatest man of our time, and Albert Einstein wrote, "Before I had not been interested in the church, but today I felt a great admiration for the church, which alone has had the courage to stand against the Hitlerian onslaught on liberty." In the 1960s, the Kremlin tried again with a new generation. Central to that framing effort, codenamed Operation Seat 12, was the 1963 theatrical play The Deputy, written by the leftist German playwright Rolf Hackut. It had the KGB's hands all over it, and it proceeded to promote the idea that Pius XII was Hitler's pope.
If you plug in, it's not just a play, but it's the whole Soviet disinformation mechanism behind the play that's promoting the play, doing books about the play, having the play translated and produced, and making kids in high school in the Soviet Union and other satellite nations go see it each year.
This man is in ground zero in Rome, surrounded by hostile forces.
No one seriously doubted where the Pope stood during the war. This all came up afterwards, after the Soviet plot came in, beginning in 1963 with the play of The Deputy.
They used the network of the Roman Catholic Church to save Jewish lives.
Every rectory, every convent, every school throughout Rome became a sanctuary for Jews. In Rome, they saved about 8,000 Jews that way, and had one of the highest percentages of anywhere people being saved. There are a lot of testimony from Jewish people who say, you know, I was there, or my relatives were there.
The Concordat that was signed with Germany enabled the church to save converted Jews. He was infiltrated by spies and still managed to save Jewish lives, which were not part of his flock. How the world came to change its opinion of him is outrageous. The Valkyrie attempt on Hitler's life, 1944. We have the documents of the Kaltenbrunner report. It names Pacelli and his secretary Lieber as co-conspirators. Why? Because they were. They actually said that they would not interfere to negotiate a peace unless Hitler was dead.
He was hailed at the liberation of Rome, at the end of the war, at the time of his death in 1958. There are letters that the Holy See was inundated with letters and tributes and thanks and stuff, and everyone, and that's 1958. By 1963, he's a villain. How does that happen? Well, it happens because it was an orchestrated campaign.